What's up, legends? Welcome to Blindside's preseason fantasy analysis. We're here with the Wars. This is Kenty's favourite team. I probably should have let you introduce this potty, Kenty.
You!
Yeah,
Up the Wars.
Brownie's kind of lost himself in the background there. We had a bit of a joke before we came onto the potty. So, Kenty, introduce your favourite team and the team that no one really cares about. We've got the Storm next, so that's coming too, Brownie.
No, boys, it's everyone's favourite team to have as their second team, unless you're a Kiwi and, like me, mad for the Warriors. So we're pretty pumped here in New Zealand. The whole season with the Warriors can't come soon enough. And there it is, Jai. Love your work.
There's the jersey.
Perfect toilet paper for this year.
You're going to need that jersey just to mop up the tears, bro.
Yeah, possibly. Well, to be honest, let's be fair. They probably would have finished top 4 last year if it wasn't for the Metcalf and Barnett injury. Like, Metcalf probably would have won the Dally M when we see how close the Dally M count was. So I'm all for the Wars, but the concern for me is this early season. They're without Barnett, but he'll probably be back sooner than what Metcalf will be. So they've kind of got to recoup and hope for a better season the whole way through. But what about you, Brownie? Anything to add to the Wars?
No, I think they were just a bit unfairly done by last season with Metcalf's injury, but man, I rate them. They got the Kiwi spirit. I enjoy rooting for them. So, yeah.
We'll get into their bye schedule for the season. It's kind of a weird looking one because it looks like they'd have a lot of interruption over the origin period. So have buys in round 10, round 14, and round 18, which means no buys for the start of the season, obviously, until round 10, just before Origin. They don't miss the first major and minor buy, but then they miss the full round of round 14. Then they play the second major and second minor. Really, the only thing they miss over Origin is the last major. So even though there's interruption in between, that's a round where there's optimal coverage available to cover any outages. So I'd argue here that this is probably closer to the perfect season than the Dragons, but just below the Dolphins. So are you guys kind of seeing it like invest early in the season, hold over Origin, find coverage in the last major buy round, and then keep for the rest of the season?
If I've invested in someone and they're playing well, absolutely is how I'd probably tend to play it, to try and save as many trades as I could over Origin.
And I think that's going to be the issue here is there any players worth investing in Warriors?
Bro, it's weird, about their buy schedule, because they got the buy in round 10, play 3 games, another buy, play 3 games, another buy.
Yeah.
So they play 2 out of the majors, which is awesome. I think they play all minors, don't they?
Yeah, all
minors.
So their buy schedule really is ultimately pretty good from a fantasy outlook, but it's just that if there's any Origin players from New Zealand that you're going to select, but only that puts Barnett in the picture, really, because all the other fantasy relevant kind of players you could look at are non-Origin contention. So that's actually pretty good.
Rounds 14, which is the only round where they're going to have this weird issue of a buy in between majors and minors, is only one team's on the bye in that week. So I don't think there's really any concern. I actually think they have a really, really good Origin schedule. But in terms of Origin planning, this could throw a lot of coaches out. So it's probably good that we've spent a bit of time on this, because I think it's guaranteed buy them from the start of the season, find coverage in their buys and hold them all year in theory. But as if we all pick 21 players and hope we're going to have them for the whole year and have $15 million in salary and 40 trades by round 27. But it just doesn't really work that way, does it? I guess let's get into the first player discussion, and I'll lead here with you, Kenty, as the Wars faithful. Who are you most interested in, or what dynamic are you most interested in for 2026?
So here in NZ, there has been some interesting developments around how they've been training. Te Martin has been getting quite a number of reps at number 7 ahead of Boyd. Whether or not that's exactly how they come out in round 1 will be really interesting. I think regardless of who ends up getting the 7, there is quite a lot of value in both Boyd and then especially Te Martin. So why I'm really quite excited about Martin is he's priced at 19, and the likelihood of him scoring, double that is actually pretty high. I would have him in that more 40 to 45 zone. There's like 20 points worth of value there. So he would be an absolute no-brainer. He'd be straight into my team. Whether or not that's exactly how they line up is a whole nother story. So say it is Boyd, you would think that he would be done pretty hard by considering that end of last year, the way in which he finished with the reserves, and he absolutely took control of that game, was man of the match when they were playing, I forget who it was from the Queensland Cup side.
Oh, Burley Bears.
Yeah, this one.
My mate was playing in that final. So
wow.
Yeah.
And Boyd absolutely killed them with his running game, with his kicking game. Yeah, you would feel like he's been kind of hard done by not starting the year. But I do think it's because he doesn't quite fit our style of play. So the Waz really play heads up, really creative. They kind of need a half like Sean Johnson always was, where he would play what he would see. It wasn't fixed structure. It wasn't real set plays, and Boyd kind of matches that sort of play more. So it'll be really interesting to see how they have trained and what comes from that. That's kind of my real interest is who gets that 7 jersey.
And we had a bit of an insight into this at the end of 2025 when Boyd was obviously first selected to play at halfback and then was dropped, I'd assume, based on, like, I guess what you've said there is that lack of compatibility with the style of play that the New Zealand Warriors bring. And he was replaced by Tamari Martin, but then Martin got injured. And then he was then replaced by Boyd again for a couple of games to finish off the year. And then when you revert back to the stat line of Tamari Martin, 9 games where he's got a 55.8 average. But one of those games is, again, another injury-affected game where he scored 3 in 23 minutes. So if you restrict the stat line to just games over 70 minutes, which he's going to be playing 80 at halfback, he has a 51.1 average with a top score of 65, but like 3 scores in the 60s, 3 in the 50s.
Even with that injury-affected game where he scored 3, his average is just under 46.
Yeah.
So immediately, you're doubling his value.
100%. He is in my team now as what we call a placeholder. The other side of this is where do the goal kicking duties go if Boyd's not taking them? Like, who do you think will take over there?
Most likely Pompey. Pompey seemed to be their main kind of backup when that occurred, and he had some games where he kicked really well and other games not so well. So that is a major positive that Boyd brings, is he's a very good kicker of the ball.
I have a bit to add to that, but before that, Brownie, I just want to turn to you. Do you have anything here that you want to add on that situation, like anything outside of what we've said that you're kind of seeing here that we might not be? Because I got an issue with this back line that Kenty's just brought up, kind of shape a different picture as to who might goal kick.
Based on the fact that they need like an actual structural like kicker, Boyd does bring that. I mean, if Tamari Martin gets selected, for instance, he's straight in my side. I mean, he's base price, and if he can put up anywhere near a 45 to a 50 average, you're just looking at immediate dollar signs right there. We don't know who's going to be fullback. We don't know who's going to be centre. We don't know what's going on there. Apparently, there's talks that Alofi Khan Pereira is going to play on the wing, and Dallin Watene-Zelezniak might actually be dropped because he's been training with the reserves. There's a lot of shifting gears that I think Webster needs to sort out, and I think they have to answer the question of who's their long-term fullback, because Tane Tuapicki's been sniffing around for a long time. Roger is still in great form, and Charles has been the long-term placeholder there. So there's a lot of moving cogs that they need to sort out before round 1.
And that's kind of where my issue is with the goal kicking side of things is, Tanah Boyd is an easy solution to fix it, but if it doesn't match the structure, it could present more problems than solutions long term. So my thought is, if it is Tamari Martin partnered with Chanel Harris-Tavita, Chanel Harris-Tavita doesn't have the best record kicking goals, but my guess is that it'll probably be him unless they can restructure this backline to fit Pompey in. Because as I've got the backline now, it'll be AKP, got Khan Pereira and Watene-Zelezniak on the wings, where Pompey could probably replace KWZ for the WAS podcast. Pompey could fit in there as the resolution. But then in the middle, you've got the likes of Kurt Capewell, like Leka Halasima could potentially play in that centre role. Then Roger Tuivasa-Sheck sitting there, and then you've got Chance Nickel-Klokstad in at fullback. I think that's going to be their major issue, is when they reshuffle the halves and picking between Boyd and Tamari Martin. They also have to shuffle other positions that would traditionally be held by other people just to fit in a goal kicker. So does that create more disruption than just going with Tanah Boyd? It's a bit of a weird picture. I think moving on from that, the opposite side of this coin is Tanah Boyd. So I'll start here with you, Brownie. Have you really done much in looking into Tanah Boyd? I think from a viewer's perspective, it's obvious he's got value there if he gets a starting role. It's not going to be dramatic, but he won't be priced where he is after the first 5-6 rounds. He'll definitely be increased in price. Do you have any interest in him at all?
No, not for this season. I think there's too many mid-ranges you could go otherwise that offer a lot more value. So say like Adam Dewey or Mitch Moses or something like that. He was my buy of the year last year. And I always said, if Tanah Boyd gets a spot, I'm getting him. And I did get him. And he did play a couple of good games. Yeah, he didn't shoot for the stars or anything like that. But for this particular season, this preseason of fantasy, I haven't looked at him whatsoever. I just think there's too much value elsewhere.
There is a ton of value in him, though, in the sense that even last year, just as halfback, and bearing in mind he had a smaller game of 27 and 32, but he has an average last year of 46, priced at 37 right now. So it's not hard to kind of imagine him pushing that, closer to a 50, even if it's for a period of time. I guess the biggest risk that I perceive is not so much that he doesn't have value there. I think he's got 10 points of value kind of at minimum. I think it's how long he would hold the position for. I think the runway is a little bit too sketchy for me. It could look like 3 or 4 weeks. So you'd be hoping that those 3 or 4 weeks he scores really well. But if he does score really well for 3 or 4 weeks, he's likely to keep the role.
It worried me last year when he did get dropped for that one game.
Yeah.
And Tamari got injured, and then Webster's like, oh, okay, well, you're back in the side then. Man, that to me says like he's kind of a very shaky option, but a solid option nonetheless with 11 points of value straight away. So,
and then adding to the depth of that analysis there with you guys and the value that is perceivably in Tanah Boyd, since 2019 until 2025, all halfback games over 70 minutes, he has a 46.5 average, so 9.5, essentially 10 points of value there. So even going off historical value, at the very, very least, you're going to get exactly what you look for in a player. Which is 10 points of value to start the season in Tanah Boyd if you want to buy it. Plus, he's going to be an ultra pod, and he's not afraid of a 70-plus score. Like, he's got a handful of them in his career. He scores mostly in the high 40s, but can just as easily flip over into low 50s, has occasional 60s, but sits more in that high to mid-40s range, which is exactly where his average is. And priced at 37 coming into the year, 0.79% ownership currently. It could be an ultra pod cashy option, but again, that's where you've got the issue of what is his longevity. We know his role. We know he's going to be kicking goals. We know he'll be taking over most of the in-play game kicking. So we know his role, but it's really trajectory that is a bit of an issue. And if you're going to get on him, it has to be from round one, in my opinion. You can't watch and then go in on round two because you're kind of flirting with the line there as to when could they look to change if Warriors aren't succeeding. And I guess that's probably a good point to turn to is the Warriors' schedule to start the year. So first 5 games in 2026, Roosters, Raiders, Knights, Tigers, Sharks. So you can see just from there, Roosters, Raiders straight up could be enough of a sign that they go, nah, we're going to go in with Tamari Martin against the Knights and the Tigers. Or say even the reverse, maybe Tamari Martin gets dropped and Boyd comes in for 3rd and 4th. I think it'll be an interesting watch. For me, Tamari Martin's the buy because he only needs 4 or 5 rounds to generate 150K with his scoring at halfback. So that'll be interesting watch. But aside from that, we'll move on here now. I'll start with you here, Brownie. Do you have anyone in this side that you're looking at that's of interest to you, or even now, possibly later, or someone that's like a severe avoid? You don't want anyone to go near.
No one is actually on my buy list from the Warriors. I mentioned Aaron Clark pre-potty, but as you said, Joy, he's lost that value of that dual position. If he was a hooker front row dual again, I would highly, highly recommend buying him at the hooker spot. But he's lost that, so it's kind of like, well, there's heaps of value in mids now. Yeah, no one's really on my buy list to do with the Waz, unfortunately. But who knows, a couple of rounds through the season, Lecker might pop off for a few 50s or 60s, and then he might be straight into my side. So who knows?
Yeah, spark a bit of interest, hey. What about you, Kenty? I've got a bit of a sneaky one here that I just want to remind coaches about, but I'll turn to you first. Is there anyone else outside of this? Like, it's not that the Warriors have a bad team. They're just poorly valued from fantasy perspective. It's like everyone in this team is great. There's a reason why they're sitting in the top 8. They're only going to get better when Metcalf comes back and Mitch Barnett's fit.
Yeah, so I'm similar to Brownie, where probably the 2 guys that are on my watch list Leko Halasima and Aaron Clark. The only concern I guess I have at this point with Halasima is, again, he has been spotted by quite a number of people training at centre. I perceive his value to be much, much higher when he's playing at edge. So for last year, he's got a 47 average at edge. You could argue that he could only get better, the way in which he was playing and just how solid he looked. And you can actually even see his minutes, they were getting managed a little bit. So he would have 2 or 3 games where he'd play the full game, and then the next game he would only play around 60. So that average was actually pulled down on purpose by the way in which the coaches at the Waz were using him. If now in his second kind of full year in a key role, and if that does happen to be edge, I would be very, very keen to go there, because he's priced at 37. He would then be, a 47 based off of still having managed minutes. If he's way less managed, that could push up into 50s. And again, you are making serious bank. So he's definitely someone I'm really watching. But again, I don't want him as a centre.
Again, there's positives to that too. Playing centre at the start of the season will give him edge centre DPP if it's a foreseeable thing, which could be huge for us long term. But then if he does move back to edge, you can see why they padded his minutes. 2024 was his first real season in the NRL, where he played mostly from the bench. He finally gets that starting role, and they're kind of trying to ease him into it because the workload's massive if you're playing 80 minutes in the forwards every week. Now, this year, for his 3rd season, another preseason under his belt, 2 years of experience, maybe he's ready for that big role. To be honest, Kurt Capewell's the more experienced centre out of the two. He really should be in that centre spot to open the door for Lecker. So I can see that reverting at some point. But do you have anything to add there on Lecker, Brownie?
No, I'm just keen to see him play this year. He's only getting better every year, and he's an absolute beast. So if reports are true that he does play in the centres and he gets that duel and he somehow moves back to second row within the early rounds of the season, man, he is going to be a massive buy on everyone's hands to get into that centre position. He's going to be...
And I wouldn't be surprised if they're just giving him reps to just build the team further, just to be able to provide that. Like if something goes wrong in a game...
Injury cover.
Yeah, Lecker's already knows the structures that they want to play and have their centres play. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's all it is, and he's got the inside running for the edge spot. But quite honestly, if he gets edge, he's in my team.
I want to just breeze over one I think coaches probably not looking at too heavily, and for good reason, is Alofiana Khan-Pereira. 407K. He's actually at 3.9% ownership, which is somewhat concerning because he is priced very much at value in a brand new side. We need to see how he plays at this club before we actually invest. And going off history of wingers at the Waz, they're not always game busters. They're not 500, 600K players. Typically what you do is, Dallin is a perfect example. You wait for him to drop into that low 300, 200K bracket on a dry try scoring run and look to invest in him at the floor for hopefully a quick turnaround of 100 to 150K in value. So for coaches looking at Lofi Khan-Pereira, just spend the extra 70, 80K or whatever Selwyn Cobbo is and take a punt there. Is probably the best, or even wait for the extra cashies to be thrown in, like Sadu 2, or maybe Cooper Buy if you need an edge coverage in a different position, and use that cash elsewhere to bolster your squad, would be my take. But the one I really want to get coaches to pay attention to here is Wade Egan. Now, what we need to see here is Wade Egan playing 80 minutes with no coverage on the bench. Last year, in the first 5 games of the season, when playing 80 minutes, he only scored a try, but he had scores of 57, 73, 51, 52, 49, and then had a 67-minute game and another 80-minute game where he scored 52 and 72. From the start of the season, he was priced at 584K, exactly where he is priced now, and jumped right up to 702K by round 9 before his minutes started to get flipped with the bench inclusion. Is that a pod alternative to the likes of Damien Cook, or you spend a little bit more to get the tier above in terms of Reed Marnie, going in a completely different direction to where anyone's looking? It's all dependent on how that bench looks coming into round 1. But if it is looking like Wade Egan playing 80 at hooker, Aaron Clark playing his 55 to 60 at lock, is that a pod investment you guys would look to take?
I still find it hard. I love Egan, plays for my team, so serious bias there. But every time you see him in some of those contact zones, even when we're there live, you you stay watching him for a little bit longer. Like, is he going to get up? Is this another head injury? Is this another leg injury? That really does worry me with him. There will definitely be a time where his name will be on most people's lips talking about what an investment he could be. But I just don't know if I'll go there, because ultimately where I'm wanting to invest and how I want to use the money across my team is probably not there. It's ultimately not going to be in hooker, because hooker at the moment doesn't seem to have that real high upside. So I'm not going to put serious money there, and I want that consistency. And hopefully you want what Clark gave us last year, where it was just real consistent scoring, real toughness, that he played pretty much every single game.
HIA history that really puts me off. I could just see him, he'll score well for you for 2 or 3 rounds, and then he'll be out for 1 to 2, 2 to 3, just because he's having delayed symptoms or something like that. He's quite prone to getting them occasionally. Starting out the season strong, I don't want to have that in the back of my mind while selecting Egan, going, look, this is a high potential, this could happen. Whereas you could just go a stable, if you want to go a big gun, Harry Grant, Cook or someone like that, you know what you're going to get.
And the HI issue isn't something to just flob off either. It's because you really, really see, like, anyone can get a HIA at any time. But there is definitely, in terms of the stat line of who gets them and who doesn't, there are some players that are more prevalent to it, whether it's tackle technique, whether it's just the position they play or the way they play on the field. You can't ignore that Wade Egan has had a ton of them. Victor Radley has had a ton of them. And that's always going to be a factor in their game. So I can understand the early punt, maybe not taking on a Wade Egan as opposed to other options in the market. But definitely someone there that has value if he can stay consistent. I know he was massively overlooked last year. I had him in my pod team from the start of the year. Same with Isaiah Katoa. That pod team ranked 6,000 and something last year. So I wish I got to have that as my blindside team. Could have easily just swapped the names on, but that wouldn't be very authentic of me. So I didn't do that. I'm not like Brownie. Just kidding. Just kidding. I guess the last one I want to touch on before we wrap up is Adam Pompey. Now, we brushed over him potentially being a kicking option. He's priced at 391K, which looks, I guess, appealing. A goal kicker at 391K. But if he is going to get a spot in this team, it's rest assured it'll be on the wing, if anywhere, where he averages 26.4 over his career. So adding to that goal kicking from the Wars, let's say an extra 4 to 6 points a game, will only push him at 1 to 3 points of value. So do not touch him. Jacob Laban is always a watch. Same with Dimitri Vaimaga. If there's injuries in the front line and they get promotion to the starting spot, they're people to watch throughout the year. But early season investment, I wouldn't really touch them. But outside of that, I think that's all we've really got to talk about on the wire.
Yeah, and Pompey's mostly played centre the last little while, so we could actually see him get named in at centre if, depending on how that shakes down. So he played pretty much most of last season all at centre for us, for like a 30 average. So he had some pretty high games, but they were like a 50 with 2 tries. His probably best game was against the Eels in round 26 for a 62 with 1 try. And that was quite a big breakout game for him. Whether or not we see that you can't really push him on remains to be seen. He's not on my, he's not even on a watch list for me.
Well, that's it, coaches. Wars all done. I can finally take a breath now that we got one of the bad teams out of the 17 out of the way. Can't dodge me. We got to get the Sharks yet. Don't worry. I'm going to know it's coming. Brownie's already made a meme of me that we've got to introduce at the start of that one. But, yeah, remember to follow Brownie's Breakdown, Kenty's Market Moves, Blindside NRL on Instagram. Please like, comment, subscribe on this podcast. And, guys, we have the live chat active every single post of these videos, so feel free to ask all your questions in there. I always sit around in there waiting for the questions to come through and get a handful of them each time, but I'm there to help you for your whole preseason if need be. So thanks for tuning in. Storm's the next one, and we'll see you then.
Up the Waz.
Up the Storm.
Up the Storm. No way.
He hits it.